Major season for men's golf is officially wrapped up, and now all eyes turn toward the FedEx Cup playoffs. What could be bigger than that? The final couple of events before the playoffs begin getting underway this weekend. The 3M Open, but up in the best state in the entire country. TPC Twin Cities, the host of this week's event. Interesting field. We're going to break it all down for today, letting you know our top bets at FanDuel Sportsbook and the top DFS plays on FanDuel as well. Welcome on into the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, joined here as I am every Tuesday by Brandon Gdula. You can find him at X at Gdula13. He is on Blue Sky at Gdula. Check out his work at FanDuel Research, where he is a senior managing editor. Brandon Scotty Scheffler did it once again, absolutely dust in the field, his second major this year and fourth overall already. How you doing today?
Yeah, a lot of ways to go from that. Definitely don't want to disrespect Scotty and his performance, especially after being so forthright about sometimes the reality of how things and accomplishments don't always linger. Shout out to Scotty, though, for sure. I was hoping for a little more history at a certain point.
Sure.
Cleared up my whole Sunday morning to watch that final round of men's major golf, and you just kind of knew going in, it was like, when he stuffed that approach shot into one, it was like, okay, maybe he just doesn't go away. And he really didn't, but like Chris got her up, and Harris English played well enough, so it didn't really get like the historical angle of it. But shout out to Scotty. I mean, I wonder what the tally's going to be when he hangs it up. But he could also hang it up,
Sure.
in over the winter if he's kind of just done with it. So I don't know.
I was a little grateful that it wasn't super close, because if you're watching YouTube, you can tell that I'm currently packing for a move. It allowed me to get more stuff done because it was not that close. Like, yeah, there was the one bunker shot that got a little weird. Hao Tong Lee did make, some nice shots there to make it kind of close. Then Wyndham made a run, stuff like that. But I was able to pack. So Scotty, thank you. My wife thanks you for allowing me to be more productive with my packing. So do appreciate it from that perspective. But just kind of watching that dominance is always fun. I know we'd like a more competitive finish, and like I totally hear that and I agree. But it's also fun to watch like legitimate greatness in a level that I wasn't really hyper aware of golf back in Tiger's day. It's nice and kind of fun to see someone replicate that. Even if Scotty's not like the cultural phenomenon that Tiger was, it's still fun to see someone who is just like so clearly dominant at a very difficult individual event.
Yeah, and just the way he does it is, I know there's not as much flash potentially, but I think there's also I think that's kind of a little, I mean, it's unfair, first of all, but it's also kind of untrue. I think what he does is just like the way sometimes that people talk about, like, I mean, Hao Tong's like, yeah, I'm playing for second, basically. And that's not always what you get, even with a multi-shot lead going in, after 54 holes. So yeah, shout out to Scotty. We now got the FedEx Cup, the Ryder Cup to look forward to in the golf world. So, and honestly, speaking of Ryder Cup, a couple names this week I think have a little work left to do, Ryder Cup wise. So I think that's the most intriguing storyline the rest of the way.
A lot of guys in the fringes who could try to make a move, gain some extra points before the FedEx Cup playoffs begin for the Ryder Cup. We'll see if they can do so. We're going to break down who those guys are, who we're betting on for this week, and the top DFS plays all for 3M Open in just 1 second. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to the FanDuel Research Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Not only is NFL just around the corner, Heat Check back with you, of course, for NFL season, talking NFL DFS, but also going to bring you PGA coverage through the end of the Tour Championship. So hit up FanDuel Research Podcast wherever you get your podcasts, but also check us out on the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page. Leave us a thumbs up there and subscribe. We appreciate those of you watching on YouTube as always. FanDuel, because nothing says summer fun like adding excitement to the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Summer sports are calling your name. baseball under the stadium lights, golf on pristine green fairways, soccer matches with world-class goals, and all the action-packed moments in between. You were going to spend all day following your favorite sports on your phone anyway. Might as well make it more thrilling with FanDuel. Open the app today and see the daily promotions due to FanDuel. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today to get started. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-79-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit M&T Gambling Health Oregon, Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelpline.ma.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's take a look here at TPC Twin Cities, the host of this week's 3M Open. It is just outside of the Twin Cities, 7,431 yards. It is a par 71. There are 156 golfers in the field this week, and the top 65 plus ties will make the cut after the first 2 rounds. Brandon, some good data from TPC Twin Cities. Kind of know what to expect at this course. What should people know about this course before placing bets or filling out their lineups?
Yeah, a bit long for a par 71, but not substantially so that driving distance is an absolute must. Fairways are about average in terms of width. Greens about average, slightly larger than average, kind of in both of those categories, but not enough necessarily to do too much with and say anything beyond what has really emerged as kind of a pretty straightforward test of golf on the current PGA Tour in 2025. Winning scores have been, it's been pretty scoreable. 17 under, 24, 17, 15, 19, and 21 under have won it in the 6 years since this has become a PGA Tour event. If you looked, kind of beyond just those finishing scores, the course kind of overview, it has been some longer hitters. So like I don't want to sound sort of hypocritical here. Like, I get that it's been some longer hitters who have won, just kind of good ball strikers, but it's not like distance has emerged as an absolute must, in my opinion. And there's actually been a bit of a statistical emphasis on driving accuracy. So now it might sound a little convoluted, but it's always a reminder every time we talk about driving accuracy numbers long-term, probably not super reliable, not because it's a bad stat or anything like that, but if you can miss a fairway and be fine, you might as well hit it, farther. So that's going to impact your fairway numbers, and golfers can try to club down, hit fairways, things like that. So just want to, put that note out there before I run through some of the recent winners here, or I guess all 6 I'm going to touch on because there's only been 6 of them. But I'm also going to just note whether they played the Open the week prior. This was not the setup back in 2019, but it's probably a fair question to want to ask, and I'm just going to note it for the last 5 winners. But Jonathan Vegas won last year, did not play the Open the week prior. Lee Hodges won in 2023, missed the cut at the Open the week prior. Tony Finau won in 2022. He was T28 at the Open. Cameron Champ in 2021 didn't play the Open. And in 2020, Michael Thompson didn't play the Open the week prior. So 3 DNPs, 1 missed cut, and a T28, just in case anybody's curious for the travel, this kind of skill level maybe to be in the field last week coming over. Just wanted to float that out there. Don't necessarily think it's how I'm going to base all of my decisions, but figured I would do the research for people. And then Matthew Wolff won in 2019. The Open was not the week prior. So that's some longer hitters for sure, but it is what it is. I think Hodges and Thompson kind of the outliers there in terms of the distance. But again, just the correlation itself with distance and strokes gained total, not really there enough for me to want to sell out for distance. I think where you really see the impact of distance is longer approaches. I think that is basically an explanation for how and why longer hitters might have success at a course like this if there's a lot of longer approaches. So spoiler alert, one of my key stats for the week is going to be proximity or strokes gained per shot on shots from 150 plus. You're just going to see some extra long approaches than normal. And beyond that, all 6 past winners were top 30 in approach for the week. And frankly, other than Champ, who was 30th, the other 5 were top 11, with 4 of the 6 winners ranking top 4 in approach. So selling out for irons, usually what we do on this show anyway, but especially this case. And then for putting, neither Wolf nor Finau, who were 59th and 64th in strokes gained putting specifically, putted particularly well, but the other champs were top 15. So, whenever you need to go 17 under, you really can't fake that too much. You got to have your approach and putting in order. So I think with the ultimate takeaway here for me from a strokes gain standpoint, another week where I think we can de-emphasize strokes gain around the green in attempt of finding some ball striking and putting. So my key stats for the week, keeping it pretty simple, strokes gain approach, strokes gain off the tee with that emphasis on driving accuracy, not just ranking people by accuracy, of course. Strokes gain putting, I have birdie or better rate in the spreadsheet for the week as well. And then proximity from 150 plus, or in my case, actually strokes gain per shot, which you can find on Data Golf and their approach skill tool if you want to dig into that.
So you alluded to the fact that if you look at like Data Golf's course fit tool, you'll see an emphasis on driving accuracy over distance. And you kind of hinted at like, the longer hitters have probably done well because the longer approach play, distance plays throughout the bag, et cetera, et cetera. Why do you think we've seen accuracy actually be a thing at this course, given that it is fairly long and that we have seen some guys like who can be a bit erratic off the tee still score well? Is it enough where you want accuracy as like a stat you care about this week, or how you're kind of viewing that dynamic?
It's honestly just a small piece of the puzzle anyway. Strokes gained off the tee is such a better stat than either distance or accuracy, unless we have a course where distance is so important that you are really going to fall behind and you can't play well.
Right.
To me, strokes gained off the tee is just too important to sort of put emphasis on driving accuracy itself. But I think for me, let me pull up the course table here for this week, because what you can often see with certain courses where you have to score well is that even if the rough itself is not super penalizing, you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball by not being in the right spots. So TPC Twin Cities, like missing the fairway, the penalty looks pretty decent compared to other courses. TPC Twin Cities, like more than you might think. And I think probably for that, you're just at a position enough where you're kind of falling behind. That's kind of how I would emphasize it, which again is another reason why driving accuracy, it's never really truly irrelevant, but it's also never fully the case. And it's probably one of the hardest stats. And until we get to a point of how important is it to hit this fairway and it's adjusted,
accuracy when accuracy matters, like if there a way to weed that out, it just doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
It's my knowledge.
So and in general, more accurate hitters are going to hit, more fairways, but whenever you can either club down or make decisions to try to miss in the right spots, which could be, in the fairway for once, instead of just driving it over something and nuking it out of the rough. So again, that's why we always try to caution against having too much emphasis on accuracy alone. It's just, but frankly, like if you do a statistical analysis most weeks, hitting fairways has a pretty high correlation with success. But there's always so much more to the puzzle that you can't do. Because again, I say this all the time. If just hitting the fairway was golf, I'd be a much better golfer. It's one of my strengths. But there's more to golf than that. So we always stress that.
Happy for you. Not the case for me. So
I got plenty of other issues. But
me too still, but that's also one of the primary issues for sure. You alluded to this when talking about the past winners at this course. It's a weird mixed bag. It's an interesting group of names. Let's dive into the course history at TPC Twin Cities. Brandon, who has stood out to you when you look at the data as far as the best golfers when they played this course?
Yeah, so we have 6 years of data. I could have dug back and factored in that 6 year, but I just didn't. I like to keep my process pretty straightforward. So I'm looking at the last 5 years of data, total strokes gained. So that's going to help us account for who's played here, often, who's played here well. But it takes more than just one good finish to kind of pop up because it's on a per round basis, anything like that. So with that in mind, leading the way for me in terms of my metrics is Tony Finau by a pretty big margin. I have him almost 50 strokes gained over the last 5 years with nobody else above a 36. But Finau won here in 2022. Beyond that was third in 2020, 28th in 2021, and then top 12 each of the last 2 years. Despite some good iron play lately, he's kind of struggled in terms of his recent form. Was kind of somewhat alive. I actually had a sprinkler or two of Finau and some DFS last week when I went more of a driving distance approach, but cooled off a lot on Sunday with a 75 to finish T56 at the Open, which is a little bit unfortunate. Cam Davis is next up. Missed the cut here in 2019 in his debut, but since then, 5 straight top 30s and 3 straight top 20s with some really good overall tee to green performances in that span. Salary is only 8,700 despite that, but missed the cut at the Barracuda Championship last week, which is not really what you want to see. And there's a couple of names that we're going to talk about who actually did miss the cut last week at that alternate event. It's like 99% sure that Barracuda is a stable for an event, which it's like points for stuff, but it just sounds sick. But until, I don't know, it's always one of those like, that'd be awesome. But whenever it happens, I'm like, I don't care. Like, but maybe don't run it opposite a major or something. I don't know. It could just be fun to try something different, but only if you get like guys like Scotty and Rory going after like eagle opportunities. But whatever. It was his second straight missed cut and his 4th in his last 6 starts, which helps explain the salary being low. Third up for me is Emiliano Grillo. Salary is 10,200. He's 50 to 1 to win on FanDuel Sportsbook. Missed the cut at TPC Twin Cities in 2021. Other than that, T3, T2, T10, T24 in his other starts. Putting really well on these bent grass greens as well. Played the Barracuda, missed the cut though. Not going to deter me necessarily, but you don't love to see that. Cameron Champ, 9,900 is the salary. He's also 50 to 1. Win at T16 and T12 in his last 3 starts at this course after missing the cut in 2019. Missed the cut at the Barracuda, which this is like, I'm going to need to double check all these. All these guys missed the cut. Is it that bad?
I know Grillo did. Like, yeah. That was a major annoyance for me earlier today for various reasons.
But had been T27 or better in 4 straight starts, mostly at weaker events, which this kind of is. So for what that's worth. Doug Gim, 8,900 is the salary. He's 80 to 1. You want some tee to green? He's kind of got that, but he actually made the cut. Wow. Finished T20 at the Barracuda. His 3rd straight top 31 finish. You love to see that. Stands to reason, I think, that he's got some success because you're looking for some ball striking for the most part, and that's what his profile is. T18 missed cut, T16 at T27 and T24 for Doug Gim at TPC Twin Cities. Jonathan Vegas, of course, last year's champ, 9,300 is the salary, 75 to 1 to go back-to-back at the 3M Open. T2 in 2021, his 2nd start at the course, missed the cut in his debut in 2020. Was T56 at the Open last week, which is 5 straight made cuts for him. That includes the Open and the US Open, which is kind of sick. Gained strokes from ball striking in 4 straight starts, but putter is not really dialed in, which is not super uncommon for Jonathan Vegas, but actually made 3 of 4 cuts at the majors this year. Missed at the Masters, but shout out to Jonathan Vegas having a low-key good year. Bryce Garnett, not really going to dig in here. The form is not great, but he's played well here. It's not going to be enough to draw me in, even at a salary of 7,900. And 2 more names rounding out the list, some quote-unquote bigger names for a field like this. Keith Mitchell, 10-4, is the DFS salary on FanDuel, 55 to 1 to win on FanDuel Sportsbook. At TPC Twin Cities, he's got a T66, a missed cut, 2 straight 5ths, and a T46, so not bad there. Hasn't had a top 25 in 6 straight starts, but did have 4 straight top 25s from late March into early May. So it's not that long ago that we've seen Keith Mitchell playing some good golf. I know we brought up his name a couple times in that stretch. And then Maverick McNeely, one of the, I'm going to call them the big three. We got Sam Burns, Chris Goddard, and Mav McNeely this week. He's one of them. Jim's making a face. I don't know.
It's grim. It's grim, man.
I mean, for us, that's like a pretty, good.
I mean, it's our guys. I'm just not used to my guys being 12K, 11-9, and 11-8.
I think weeks like this really test my interest in going deep on the PGA Tour. When I get a field like this to break it down and analyze it, I'm like, no, it's good. We got Sam Burns, we got Chris Goddard, we got Mav McNeely. But like, if it's Sunday and it's like, can Mav McNeely fend off like Andrew Putnam or something? I'm like, all right, maybe I'll go outside or something. But
I mean,
or follow along.
If Putnam can get a top 10, that's cool. I'd be cool with that. Just throwing that out there. I'll take a runner-up. That's fine by me.
But McNeely near the top of the odds board for a reason. 3 straight top 25s, including a T17 at the Travelers, T22 at the Genesis Scottish Open, and a T23 at the Open. Unfortunately, did not get that top 20, but 4 made cuts at the majors this year. The T23 was his best. He was in the 30s in his other ones. But T16, T49, T3 at the 3M Open, and 3 career starts. Really good short game at this course. Just kind of interesting. But anybody jump out here?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Grillo because I still remember entering the U.S. Open. His salary was like in the 7K range, somewhere down there. And you were like, Grillo's striping his irons. I'm going to give him a shot. And he made the cut, finished 19th, like played really well there. He's been a bit more inconsistent since then, but has still had some like he finished second at the John Deere. So good form for Grillo. You mentioned the putter being solid. That's encouraging. The ball striking, it was what's always got us there with Grillo, and that's been there at least, in stretches. I couldn't quite get over the miscut at the Barracuda last week. Like there's no shot length data, so I can't be like, oh, he just blew it all the way on the greens. Like I wish I could like look at that. I think he's interesting still. That was my one only reservation is the combo of overall current form beyond just 1 week combined with that really good course history enough to interest you for Grillo this week?
Yeah, I'll just say I'm on board with a partial unit on him to win outright at 50-1, but I also like him to finish, flash some upside, finish top 10. Now this week could get a little clustered when scoring is low. I feel like just brings so many guys in, but he's also plus 230 to finish top 20. We'll talk more about him later, but I do think that there's enough, and it's a good reason to sort of we mentioned the guys who didn't play the Open and still had success here. Like I just don't think a missed cut at a kind of exhibition scoring based event is.
You don't think a guy who's been around as long as Grillo's getting up for the CUDA?
I mean, he's due for putting regression. He's accurate. He's one of the best ball strikers in the field, like long term and short term. It's one of those, we're talking about form and whatever, but we're going to talk more about recent form here in 1 second.
I will not require a lot of convincing on the Grillo top 10. I'll tell you that. Cool. So right. I'm looking forward to you talking me into that later on. First, though, as mentioned, let's dig into the more recent form. Golfers who enter with the best form for this week. Brandon, when you look at the more recent data, who stands out in this field?
So I'm just going to do, it's not fair to compare anybody currently to someone like Scotty Scheffler or really I'm going to give context. Okay. I'm going to look at the last 3 months of data from Data Golf, their true strokes gain metric, which adjusts for field strength. Over the last 3 months, Scheffler's at a 3.62. We got Bryson at a 2.5, Rahm at a 2.28. And Tommy Fleetwood at a 2.09. So those are the top level sort of immediate but moderate stretches of recent form. This week, we have Sam Burns leading the way at a 1.79, which is respectable. It's still 0.3 shots worse than Tommy Fleetwood in that span. Chris Goddard's at a 1.73, so very similar number. And then we fall off to Maverick McNeely at a 1.42. And Jake Knapp at a 1.18. So yes, people are favored. Yes, people have high DFS salaries, but this is unsurprisingly, I'm not breaking any news here. It's just important to remember. This is not like we might think Sam Burns is by far and away the best golfer in the field, and I kind of do to a degree, but it's just a very we got to be receptive to getting it wrong. Now, spoiler alert, I like Sam Burns to win this week, but it's just a different situation than what we typically get because those numbers are low relative to what you typically see when you dig in. If you kind of got into the golf for the major season, you want to stick around, just remember it's a bit of a different week this week. So those are the three names that stand out at the top. And usually it's like a list of 5 or 6 names worth shouting out at the top in good form, but I want to leave it at just Sam Burns. Again, 1.79, Chris Goddard 1.73, and Matt McNeely 1.42 before that drop off below 1.2. Really what we're trying to look for, golfers who might be a little bit under the radar in good form. So for me, that's golfers with a salary on FanDuel at or below 10,000. I'm going to cheat on one name here because I kind of have to, or else there's not a lot to talk about, who have the best form. From that perspective, Kevin Yu leads the way. Salary's 9,800. He's at a 1.08 true strokes gained per round last 3 months. Missed the cut at the Open, but 4 straight cuts prior to that, 4 top 25s and 2 top 5s since mid-May, which you like to see. 2 for 2 with made cuts here. Kind of said his name a little bit. The ball striking can be there, so he's interesting. I'm cheating on this next one with Adam Scott. Salary's 10,100. He's at a 1.04. I know he's over 10,000, but it's just at least worth noting. Missed the cut at the Open, but prior to that was T17 at the Genesis Scottish Open, T23 at the US Open, and T19 at the PGA. So this might be one of those of oh yeah, he's not doing too much. And you kind of get like Adam Scott at 45 to 1 or a mid-range salary. It's like maybe Adam Scott deserves a little more than a different mid-range name, something like that. I'm not quite there even, but I felt like it was a little disrespectful to kind of rule him out. Hasn't played here in the past, which is a little unfortunate, but 6th in true strokes gained over the last year among this field. So again, if you want to look at that longer range form, of course, Adam Scott's going to stand out name value wise, but he hasn't fallen off to the degree that you just kind of gloss over him entirely. Just kind of wanted to give him some respect this week. Next up is Vince Whaley, 9,600 is the salary. He's at a 1.02, 70 to 1 to win. T4 I never know if it's ISCO or ISCO, and I forgot to find out. It is what it is. T23 at the Barracuda the last 2 weeks for these alternate events. 2 missed cuts and 2 tries at this course. He is long off the tee, kind of solid across the board statistically, so it's fine. And I understand it's a $500 difference, but Vince Whaley you could talk yourself into. Adam Scott, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of an easier sell. Next up on the list, this is all amateur data, but Preston Stout, salary is only 7,700. Looked into it. The WAGR, the Wagger website, is it always confuses me. It feels so there's so much going on, and it just feels like I'm misreading all of the results. But as far as I could tell, he won the Big 12 Men's Golf Championship. I'll send you the link. You look it up, and it feels like there's too much happening.
I can't look it up because I got distracted because there's apparently a Spanish soccer player named Isco, and I was trying to figure out your answer to your question. There's a soccer player named Isco too. I don't know, man. I got thrown off, so I've checked out officially.
All right, I'm gonna send you this link because it always feels like there's too many numbers. There's a lot of decimal. This
feels like phishing. I don't want to click
It's not.
the link.
It's not. Please click it for the show.
Our company tests us for phishing all the time, and I don't trust links that get sent to me.
It is just click it because I need you to validate me. There's the divisors and average points, and there's so many decimal points. I'm I don't know what's happening here, but
all right.
Are you click it?
I did. No, it just says participant. What does that mean if he's
That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
All right.
I don't know.
All right, yeah.
And I try to follow this stuff more and more, but it just every time I dig into it, I don't know what some of it is really referring to. And I also don't know enough to know how to weight certain events here, and someone listening might be able to just like call me a dummy and let me know. But there's a lot happening. But I see number ones by the Big 12 Conference men's golf championship and the Northeast Amateur Invitational, which was his last start. And it's also listed by week and it doesn't say the date, so I don't actually know. And then it gets me like, it just makes me kind of, so this is June 18th. He went 69, 61, 72, 65 to win by like 8 shots. So
did you list 5 rounds?
No, 69, 61, 72, 65 to win by 8.
Oh, I don't know why I heard 5 there. I don't know. I'm still thrown off by the ISCO thing.
Okay.
ISCO,
let's just move.
Maybe?
I don't know.
ISCO. Oh, it's Spanish. ISCO. I'm going to call the company ISCO as well. Just going off the Spanish pronunciation. It's nothing to do with Spain, but we're going to go with it.
Well, if you want like an interesting off the radar amateur, maybe Preston Stout does the trick for you. Other than that, and he's at a 0.97, which is interesting because it falls off to Andrew Putnam at a 0.88. Salary's only 8,400. Form obviously isn't bad because we're talking about him here. T11 or better in 3 of his last 5 starts. Ball striking just kind of has fallen off to the point that I get a little nervous about Putnam. A course where you can kind of get away with some accuracy, it's helpful, but still a bit of a stretch for me. Matt Wallace
is real low on Putnam.
It is.
Though. Yeah,
it is.
I'm like, I can forgive a lot of sins when you're 84. When I'm struggling to find guys I don't hate, so I'm probably still going to be there personally.
I agree from a DFS standpoint. I don't know at 60-1 if like that's the.
Oh no, to win? No, wait.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like
I don't think that does enough for me. 84 though is.
I mentioned before that I'd bet him top 10. That was 11-1. I'm not betting a guy to win at 60 when I bet him 11-1 for a top 10. Like no dice, man.
Matt Wallace, 0.79, salary's 9,500. Was T50 and T45 at the link setups the last 2 weeks. 3 for 3 with made cuts. Great ball striking at this course. Sam Stevens also at a 0.79. Same for Mark Hubbard, but Stevens' salary's 9,400. Hubbard comes in at 83. Stevens was T75 at the Genesis Scottish Open. No missed cuts since early April. T10, T64 here in 2 starts as well. Hubbard, same strokes gained as Wallace and Stevens, who are in the mid 9K. Hubbard, just 8,300. 4 straight made cuts. T16 and a missed cut at TPC Twin Cities in the past. Good short game, kind of similar-ish to Putnam. So, for what that's worth. Tristan Lawrence, 0.78, so just behind. Salary's only 8,000. Missed the cut at the Scottish, but T45 at the Open. He's lost approach in 3 straight. Missed the cut here last year. Kind of just a mid-level ball striker. Good putter. That could be enough here for the week, is what it is. And then someone else who kind of fits in that profile was Christian Bezadenhout. Salary's 86. Well, he was kind of just in this bucket, but it's interesting. Christian Bezadenhout, 8,600, 70-1 to win. Just never really has any upside, but he's at a 0.75. Irons are kind of coming alive, though. You like to see that. Positive in 7 of his last 9. And not only that, but at least 1 shot gain per round in 4 of his last 9, which I think I rounded up 1 at the US Open. It was like a 0.95 or something, but that's like some ceiling potential for Bezadenhout. You give him some irons with his short game if it doesn't fall off, like it's kind of interesting. So I'm interested to see how his ceiling metrics change if they do, if he can kind of sustain this. But anybody on this list or any bodies on this list you want to discuss more?
Any bodies?
So
Bezadenhout, like he's one of those guys where I saw the green on my spreadsheet and kind of rolled my eyes because we've been here before. We've been down the Bez hole previously. And I was like, all right, I'm not doing this. And then I actually clicked through his data golf profile. I was like, oh, same thing as you, where the irons are heating up. Short game has still been good. He hasn't been doing like every single bit of work via his putter's still been very good, but it's not like exclusively via putting anymore. So I like it quite a bit for 86. I like it for betting too. So I think I'm just kind of in on Bezadenhout overall this week, which surprised me given I thought I could just, roll my eyes, oh, another heat check favorite and scroll past him. I think that he's doing more to justify a deeper look right now.
I agree.
Yep. All right. Weather for this week doesn't look too shabby. Could be a little bit moist on Thursday morning. So maybe things play a little bit slower there. That could benefit some golfers with that time. I don't see anything else as far as weekend. Pretty low wind speeds up in Blaine. So I think we'll be all good to go from a weather perspective. Maybe a slight edge for golfers with early Thursday tee times, but nothing we need to react to too heavily as far as weather goes for this week. Let's take a look now at the betting odds at FanDuel Sportsbook and try to identify favorite bets at FanDuel Sportsbook for this week. Brandon, you mentioned the big three. Goddard up and Burns 18-1, Matt McNeely 20-1. Who stands out to you from a betting perspective to win the 3M Open this week?
Well, we got a lot in common this week, Jim. We didn't talk about it, and we ended up in the same places. So it's either great or terrible. There's no room for any in between, but
we have the exact same two betting picks. Yeah. And honestly, I couldn't think of anyone else. So I think we got to just stick with it, commit to our guys, and pray this does not blow up in our faces.
The last thing I'm going to do is change my recommendations that I work hard on and really try to give the best process I can, just because you landed on the same two names. Correct. But, it probably doesn't make for the best listen. However, it is what it is. But I think Sam Burns has what it takes to win the 3M Open this week at 18-1 on FanDuel Sportsbook. He's the top golfer in my stats model for the week. He's really solidified his ball striking numbers with positive marks over his last 36 rounds, which is around where ball striking numbers stabilize. The short game, of course, we know with Sam Burns is great. Second best putter in the field over the last 50 rounds, I believe, and I'll double check here, 99th percentile putter from within 15 feet on tour this season, and 70th percentile on longer putts. So hard to do it much better than that, frankly, for our guy, Sam Burns. And now the ball striking is coming alive. So he checks the boxes to me of being able to go low with ball striking and putting like that. And he's played well enough at TPC Twin Cities to want to buy in. T7, T37, and T12 in his 3 starts. Those were in 2019, 2020, and 2024, respectively. So he just leads the pack for me among, again, it's pretty interesting big three. I like Mav McNeely. I think he's interesting as always. He's got a really good, solid, like all-around game. He's played well enough here. Chris Goddard might just be on a heater. These are 3 names, though, that really are trying to make a case for the Ryder Cup. I think Burns has a lot to prove here. And it's not just like the Ryder Cup narrative, but he has what it takes to go out and win this event. And frankly, I think win it by a couple shots if he is locked in. And so for me, full tournament, top 3, whatever it is, Sam Burns is the name I keep going back to.
Yeah, for me, the selling point with Burns was the recent ball striking data. I look at the past 24 rounds off the tee, past 36 approach, past 50 with short game. And I look at those numbers. Sam Burns, 1.81 true strokes gained according to Data Golf. The second best is Goddard, 1.67. Then McNeely, 1.44. So it's not a huge gap. We're not talking like a Scotty kind of gap between Sam Burns and the field, but he also does lead across the past 6 months, which includes a lot of data where Sam Burns wasn't playing the best golf. And to see him playing better now via the ball striking says to me, this is pretty believable given that Burns, like long-term, I would say is the best of this trio as well. So to me, Burns, again, best long-term player, best data the past 6 months, best data. You look at the more recent ball striking data plus longer-term short game data. That allows it to me to say this guy at 18-1 is a quality bet, even though like it is a short price for sure. And it may feel awkward to be betting him in this field. I do still think it's worth it for sure. So Sam Burns, to me, the best outright for this week, 18-1, really good number for him. Were there any reservations for you with Burns? You know, because I did take me a bit. I kind of like think the number threw me off, frankly, and that kind of like pushed it aside. But once I considered more context with this field, I was like, okay, I do think 18-1 is a proper number for him. That was my main hangup, which is like the number is pretty short still. Were there any hangups for you with Burns before you decided to pull the trigger?
Short relative to this field, or just short for Sam Burns in a vacuum?
I guess like probably the Burns side of things.
Just betting Sam Burns at 18-1.
Yeah.
I can see that. But I model things out and
Yeah.
I see enough value here
Yeah.
to want to get there. And if you open things back up, you mentioned this, Burns being the best long-term golfer of the three, but he's the best, long-term golfer in the field over the last 12 months. But he's at a 1.37 true strokes gained per round over the last 12 months. McNeely's at a 1.1, and Gdula, as we know, is coming on strong, 0.63. So that puts Burns, basically a shot per tournament better than McNeely in terms of long-term form. And he's like doubling up that on Gdula. Now, that's not just the only thing you look at, but to me with Burns, that includes, like you said, some, pretty like whatever happened to Sam Burns. And now things seem to kind of be back. And it's hard to remember this at this point, but he really had a chance to go out and win the US Open. Things didn't go his way. Not saying it was just like it was a bad ruling or something like that. Just didn't go his way. But we could be looking at Sam Burns with the US Open. He's probably not playing this week, maybe. But Sam Burns, if he had won the US Open,
what do you think? JJ Spawn's like third in Ryder Cup points. Like, we wouldn't be having this bubble discussion with Burns if he had won the US Open.
But if he had, and he was playing this week, everything else after the US Open was the same.
Right.
Is he 12, 14?
Yeah, he might be 10,
12,
frankly.
10? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a lot. Like, and that...
Like, he'd be overvalued there, but that's, like, I think I agree with you that that's around where he'd be.
I agree that he'd probably be closer to 10 than 14 if he went off at 12, but I was being a little more mathematical with it, but the narrative and like subjectivity, sure, he'd probably be 10-1. And I think stuff like that adds up. And that's why I like to look at long-term data. We look at the recent form, but for me, Burns, it's almost like I'm not going to regret betting Sam Burns, whose ball striking is coming alive, and I'm never going to have to worry about the putter based on how good his putting is.
Couldn't agree more. So we're both on Sam Burns at 18-1 to win this week. Because you got Burns, I'm going to discuss our other overlap as far as outrights this week. The other guy we both like to win for the 3M Open is a very fun name. And I'm excited that I actually got to talk about this guy this week. That's Akshay Bhatia, who checks in at 35-1 to win the 3M Open. You'll sometimes see with these lesser field events to see like a breakout name kind of emerge and take advantage of not even go up against Scheffler, McIlroy, Schauffele, all those guys. Wouldn't be shocked if Akshay winds up being that guy this week. And he's actually shortened a bit. He was 40-1 on Monday, now 35-1. And the reason that I wanted to go here and wanted to get here on Bhatia is that his irons have been really good recently. He ranked second in this field in iron play the past 6 months, showing just Henrik Norlander. Bhatia is a guy who gains on the greens, decently accurate off the tee, just really struggles around the green. But like you said, we can potentially downplay that this week in favor of guys who are good putters, who are good ball strikers. Bhatia checks both those boxes. Now, the around the green play is still bad, which is a concern, but it's a good price. 35-1 to me does kind of account for that. So I like the archetype of Akshay Bhatia, given this kind of field. I like the iron play a lot. So to me, 35-1, a very fair price to pay for Akshay Bhatia to win this week. We'll put you on Akshay Bhatia for the 3M Open.
So he's also got like an outside chance to make the Ryder Cup, which I think is interesting. He's got a lot of heavy lifting to do, and I don't think it's going to happen, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. But I think he's a really good fit for TPC Twin Cities, given the irons. He's second in the field over the last 50 rounds in strokes gained approach, which when I think of Akshay, frankly, and maybe it's just the big like broomstick putter, I think of him more as a putter who's generally accurate off the tee, but his iron play is really, stabilized and kind of started to separate him from some other names. Like, it's not like he's been a bad iron player, but he's going through a career best. Last year, he was gaining 0.33 strokes per round with approach. This season, he's at a 0.65, so he's basically doubled his impact. With the irons, we know he's accurate. The pure accuracy numbers kind of come and go, but I think that's just the nature of how things get put together in terms of fairways hit. But he's also Sixth among this field on tour and birdie or better percentage, which you like to see. You got to go low. And he's 12th among the field in strokes gained per shot from 150 plus this year. The last 12 months, I should specify, according to Data Golf. So it really feels like it's the right type of profile. Hit the fairway, be really good on your long-term or your long approaches. And then he still is a very good putter. It's not just like that putter that comes to mind. He's an 86th percentile putter from within 15 feet on tour this year, 74th beyond that. You love to see that. And I am aware that this is very much a long shot friendly event. That doesn't mean that the better players can't win. And it also is kind of one of those like, okay, if one of 100 guys has a chance to win, you still have to figure out who's going to win.
Right.
I feel good with Burns and Akshay at these numbers, but I still want to, and if I go with an 18 and a 35, it leaves me plenty of room to sprinkle some partial units on these longer names because that's typically what we see at the 3M Open. However, Tony Finau went out and won as well as I think he was 13-1 that year in 2022. So for me, I still believe in that some of these bigger names can separate. So Burns and Akshay, I feel really good with this week from a process standpoint.
I do too. And honestly, Akshay was the first person I bet this week. I know I said Burns my favorite outright, but Batia is the one I talked myself into first because the number to me was enticing enough. I think 35 is still a very good number for him. So we're both on Sam Burns 18-1, Akshay Batia 35, which means the win picks segment later on will be very, very interesting, I feel like. Before that, though, got to dig in to the non-outrights. Where else are you looking, Brandon, as far as betting value for this week?
So I just said that I'm good with long shots. These next two names I'll have sprinkles on in terms of outrights, but more specifically, Emiliano Grillo to finish top 10 at plus 500. The ceiling is not exactly as strong as I'd want. I have him 35th in strokes gained ceiling over his last 50 rounds. It's data from Data Golf. It's your average plus a standard deviation, which gives a pretty good expectation of what your realistic ceiling is without really looking at outlier results. But his approach play ranks him 9th over the last 50 rounds among this field, and he's due for positive putting regression. Grillo's not really that golfer who just couldn't ever make a putt anymore. He's a 77th percentile putter from within 15 feet on tour this season, but just 22nd percentile from beyond that. So more putts should fall for Grillo, and that will help with that ceiling number. So I don't just look at that and say, guy's got no upside. It's like, what's leading to some, lower upside? Probably needs to make a couple more long putts. And this is a week where he can do that. Returning to a course where he's played well in the past. Since 2020, Grillo's finished T3, cut, T2, T10, and T24 at this setup. Did you have anything on Grillo, or you were just kind of said he was interesting?
Yeah, I looked into him at 5-1. There were two guys I liked more at their respective top 10 odds, but if I had done a third one, I think Grillo would have been that guy just because of the combination of the ball striking, the putting numbers, improving, as you said. I don't care about course history, but if it is there, it's going to help push me over that edge typically. So I think that was the key thing for me. So still have not actually placed the bet on Grillo top 10, but I think before T10s roll on Thursday, I wouldn't be shocked if I do wind up adding him to my card.
I like that. That's enough for me to feel validated. You told me to try to talk you into him, and I maybe did. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe
I think you will. I just don't want to be rude and place bets on the phone while you're talking. I'm the most engaged co-host that's ever existed, so would never do that to you.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Who else do you like for non-outrights this week?
So this name fits in the more traditional winner at the 3M Open in terms of his win odds at 90-1. But Matt McCarty, again, I'm going to bet him at 90-1 or thereabouts. But for this specific instance, I'd rather recommend him for a top 20 at plus 330. He was T22 at the Genesis Scottish Open. Did miss the cut at the Open by 2 shots. Really struggled with the approach play. Not going to try to bury that one. But the last 36 rounds of approach play, still top 40 among this field. And he's a more accurate driver than he is a long driver, which I'm interested in for this week. McCarty's also top 30 in birdie rate among this field on tour for the season. And he's tied for 45th in win odds, but he's 32nd in that ceiling metric that I like to look at over everyone's last 50 rounds. So I don't think it's properly accounted for what his potential is. He is a little more volatile than you'd like to see, but that's okay because even a top 20 result is a semblance of upside. And speaking of some volatility, I like another top 20 at plus 600, and that's for Henrik Norlander. Norlander, third in strokes gained approach among this field over the last 36 rounds, trailing just Akshay and Emiliano Grillo, that is. So shout out to them again, who've already gotten mentions in this section. But over the last 50 rounds, let me double check this. Over the last 50 rounds, Henrik Norlander is first in strokes gained approach.
He's also first the past 6 months.
Okay.
But he's at 0.81, I think, and Akshay's at 0.78. So it's like they're very close 1-2.
Yeah, last 50 rounds, it's 0.85 to 0.78. Yeah. So shout out to Henrik Norlander. He's sixth in strokes gained per shot over the last 12 months from 150 plus, and he's been T23, missed cut, T57, and T12 at the 3M Open over his 4 starts. I know that's just 1 out of 4, but almost 2 out of 4. And with the ball striking being what it is, like I'm willing at 6-1 for a top 20 to get in on potentially the best iron player in the field right now. So Norlander 6-1 top 20 is piquing my interest.
I like that. Do the iron play. I like McCarty too. Plus 330 for a top 20. I like him for DFS. I think we'll talk about him later on there. And then you got Grillo as well. Top 10, 5-1 for this week. I've got a couple of top 10 bets. Mentioned that these are the ones that I liked a bit more than I like the Grillo one, so they wound up edging him out. I do still like the Grillo one. I'm not opposed to that. But let's talk first about Christian Bezuidenhout, who is 6-1 for a top 10. Again, I kind of wrote him off because it was like, okay, we've done this before. Why are we here again? But then you look at the data and like it's been really fun. The irons, much better recently. He was plus 1.12 at the Scottish Open, 0.46 at Portrush. Again, very tough fields for both those. And Bezuidenhout played really well. We've seen the irons be good in the past. Never great. Like that's never been his strength. It's always been like, okay, he is a short game merchant. And the irons come and go, but they're doing well right now. So I don't think it's entirely fluky to see the irons trending up. And he should be able to compete in this field. So 6-1 for a top 10. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I do like Bezuidenhout there. Other guy is someone you alluded to, I believe, in the current form section. We kind of breezed past him, but Sam Stevens is plus 650, was plus 650. Did he move? He did. He's 6-1. All right. Well, not as good as it was before, but still good enough on Sam Stevens. The irons for Stevens really tanked at the Scottish Open, but he's generally been golfing pretty well. The driver trending up. That helped him make the cut of the PGA Championship and at the US Open too. Short game for Stevens, pretty solid. He can spike with the irons. Definitely not consistent there. And the consistency or lack thereof is why I prefer Stevens for a top 10 as opposed to a top 20. I kind of want more juice for the squeeze. I'm going to take on more risk with Stevens, but 6-1 for a top 10 does make a lot of sense to me. Honestly, if you gave me Grillo at 5 versus Stevens at 6, I probably would go Grillo there. I think the shortening on Stevens would give Grillo the edge for me, but I just still like Stevens at 6 as a solid option for this week. So I got Bezuidenhout top 10, 6-1. Sam Stevens top 10, 6-1 as well, but might rank Grillo above that too, with Stevens shortening a bit there down to 6-1 for a top 10. Any thoughts for you on Bezuidenhout or Stevens at those numbers?
Prefer Bezuidenhout. Stevens, the variance with the irons just not quite high enough. So
yeah,
and top end finishing positions are still upside. So I'd rather go with Bezuidenhout than Stevens personally.
Okay. Let's take a look now at DFS for this week. And I'm not sure if you had the same experience. Given that we're on the same guys for betting, I wouldn't be shocked if you did the same experience. It feels like we're viewing the field pretty similar this week. I had a really tough time in like very specific pockets finding golfers I wanted to talk about. Specifically, I think the 9,000 range is grim this week. I don't know if you thought the same thing. Was that kind of the same impression that you got when looking at this player pool?
Yeah, I mean, I've basically got 2 names jotted down to shout out whose
Yeah.
salary starts with 9.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that everyone else is a terrible play there, but in terms of what I'm finding, and I'm also kind of finding a lot of value plays just because there's not a lot of separation, which is
Yeah.
a little antithetical because it sort of is putting me more on the top few names where I can go like a double stud lineup, even though we just talked about how they're not the same studs as we typically would get. But I still think that's the right play. So I'm
Yeah.
with you. That mid range is kind of barren.
I agree. Okay, so let's stop at the top of the field here. Sam Burns leading the way in salary, $12,000. Goddard is 11.9. McNeely 11.8. Of the quote unquote big three, Brandon, where are you leaning for DFS?
Burns, McNeely, Goddard. It's close enough where I would pivot from Burns to Goddard in tournament lineups just to sort of do it. I think Burns will catch attention just because he is the highest salary golfer, technically like the biggest name.
I think people are going
But
to remember Goddard up the past 2 weeks, and I think that'll pull a lot of weight.
it's very possible.
I hope so. Maybe this is, again, just me, talking myself into it and just saying, yeah, just take Sam Burns regardless. But that's my hope, at least, is that Goddard getting a lot of money, frankly, past couple weeks will help draw people his way.
So probably Mav is like the tournament.
Potentially, yeah. Because your research has shown that the golfers with the best betting odds and highest salaries tend to have the highest roster rates. That applies to Burns most this week. But then again, we also have the same betting odds on Goddard. So yeah, Mav, maybe he does wind up being the guy who flies under the radar. I think that So you said you have Mav over Goddard straight up, correct?
I mean, like, straight up just for a head-to-head.
Actually, I think you're right. Never mind. Yeah, I do prefer Mav too.
I think I do too. I trust the long-term sample more, but
so it could be a situation where if you want to exploit Mav flying a bit more into the radar, just plug in Burns plus Mav, given we don't like the mid-range anyway. Burns plus Mav is 90-50 left for 4 golfers. I can work with that this week. No problem. I think that's totally fine.
Yeah, I think the biggest counter to that is the 10K range is somewhat interesting. So maybe you could get
that's the other route
instead of
because I do think that the 10K range is good. Any other names you like in the 11K range?
What about your boy Wyndham Clark?
I don't want to do it yet. I like that he's had more spike weeks with the irons. I feel like it's interesting. It's like, you'd think that given that he had that impressive finish last week, kind of pulled a Bryson where he had the really bad Thursday and then was great after that. 11th at the Genesis Scottish Open 2, 17th at the Travel. He's had some good finishes recently. I kind of thought that he might be getting more like betting steam, but he hasn't. So maybe no one uses him and you could go there. We know that he can be a very good golfer, hasn't shown that consistently for a while now. So
have you ever shown it consistently though?
What's that?
Have you ever shown it consistently?
Consistently is not the right word. He hasn't done it often enough recently.
Yeah.
Whereas back in, the stretch where he won, he had to win his signature event back in 2023, then won the US Open, then won at Pebble Beach. Those were easier to predict, I feel like, than what he's doing right now. So I don't know. I think I need to see more before I'm willing to trust him at a low betting odds or a high DFS salary.
Yeah. I'm not there.
Wyndham to miss the cut this week might be a good bet. I don't know. I don't make those bets personally.
Yeah.
But yeah. Let's see here. Just gonna see. He's plus 190 to miss the cut. I'd like better odds than that. So actually, I'm gonna avoid him altogether.
That's fine. Other than that, in the 11K range, I don't mind Taylor Pendrith, but I'm probably not going to get there because he's so close to Mav.
Yeah. I agree.
I would shout out Siwoo Kim at 10-8. Kind of popped for me a little bit, but not enough to do too much beyond that. So at least worth shouting out his name. First percentile putter from beyond 15 feet on tour this year, which is tough. Oof. But he does change his putter every round, so that can't help.
I also did put Siwoo Kim on my list at 10-8, in part of more like a balanced approach, like Burns plus Siwoo Kim, and then you got Akshay Bhatia at 10-3 and Leon Grillo at 10-2. If you go, I'll go Bhatia because I think I like him more than Grillo personally. If you go with Burns, Kim, Bhatia, 89.67 left for 3 golfers, that's fine by me too. So I think that I can make this 10K range work. So to me, it's either Burns plus Mav as my preferred approach or Burns plus 2 guys in the 10K range. I think those are going to be my favorite ways to build a lineup for this week.
Yeah, I'm probably leaning Burns, Akshay, and Grillo.
Okay.
There. That's 91.67 left. Team Callaway getting off to a good start there, but
a Callaway stack.
That's a little more interesting to me than Siwoo, but
okay, I like it. But overall, we're into skipping over most of the 11K range outside of those big 3, liking the 10K range more than we might typically. Did you give any thought to Max Homa at 10K?
No.
None.
Did you?
It's been slightly better recently. And
well, what was the baseline before that?
Well, the baseline is hideous, but like, yeah. I think he missed got the CUDA last week too. No, 45th. There we go. But like we don't have shot like data from the Barracuda, but he's actually gained an approach in 3 straight where they have data. The Travelers, the Rock. Did he get a sponsors exemption to the Travelers? I guess he's been in all the signature. I don't know. Anyway, he's gained on approach in 3 straight, 1.09 at the John Deere, 0.78 at the Rocket Classic when he missed the cut, and then a 0.21 at the Travelers. You know, it's one of those things where like we know he's not a bad golfer. He's just in a really, 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 really bad funk. And I don't mind buying into guys of that nature in this kind of field. So I did give him some thought. I didn't ultimately talk myself into it, but I gave it some thought.
That's fine. I think he's also, I don't know how contracts work for TGL, but he might need to get into shape, or he might not make the team next year.
All right, let's get into the 9K range. Who stands out to you in a range we both feel is not amazing this week?
I can shout out Cam Champ, but mostly it'd be Kevin Yu. He's the name that I jotted down, who wasn't in the 9,000 in the 9,000 range.
Yeah.
Like Matt Wallace and Sam Stevens are fine, but they don't move the needle enough for me to prioritize them over some 8K names, which then cost me names in the 10,000 range. Do you have interest in Hao Tong Lee or Jonathan Vegas at all?
I do in Hao Tong Lee. Obviously you talked about the trend of like, you know, guys who win here didn't play the previous week for the most part, but like Hao Tong Lee had been playing well on the DP World Tour before what he did at the Open Championship last week. Had a lot of good finishes there, doing with a combo of good irons and decent putting. $9,400 the salary, I'm willing to give him a swipe there. I think that's totally fine. Based on what the salary is, like his overall, if you look at the Data Golf True Strokes gain numbers, pretty good recently. So for that salary, I'm good with it. He's kind of the only guy I actually wrote down in this range. Obviously, a lot more like emotional / mental investment from Hao Tong Lee this past week than what most guys had to give in. So I think that could be a one downside for sure, but 94 is not bad for him based on how he's been golfing recently.
Yeah, I could consider that.
Mm-hmm. I did look into Sam Stevens a bit at 94, considered Alex Smalley at 97. I just couldn't really like feel amazing about anyone. So I'll probably lean towards you with you as opposed to other stuff in this 9K range, but I do like Hao Tong Lee at 94. Getting down to 9,000 exactly and lower, what stands out to you there?
I have Alex Noren jotted down. If you look at his last 5 events, you're not going to like what you see from the ball striking standpoint. Lost strokes with his driver in 4 straight and with his approach in 4 of his last 5. But it's actually like right before that, like if you look at his 36 rounds of sort of ball striking, he's a positive still. He's got a good short game. I mean, this guy was T17 at the PGA Championship. He just is like getting back into golf in May. So I think that there's a chance he's a little bit undervalued from that perspective. And that he's going through a little bit that could continue. And it could just be like, all right, he's irrelevant or misses the cut. But played here twice before in 2020 and 2023. He was T3 and T13. I think it's a good setup for him, and I would be fine at 9,000 to take a chance on Noren just being a little bit undervalued here.
Yeah, I do think that makes sense. I'm okay with Noren at 9,000 as well. Couple of guys I had in my list in the AK range. Matt McCarty is 88. We talked about him in the betting section. I think that he's solid for DFS. $8,800 his salary there. Really don't mind that. Scrolling down a bit further, Christian Bezuidenhout at 86. Obviously, if we're running him for a top 10, 6-1, we're probably going to like this guy for DFS. 86 to me, a good number. And then the final guy I want to shout is Andrew Putnam, 84. I think his betting odds have shortened far too much. Kind of egregious, frankly. But $84 for DFS, given that it's like Putnam's a guy you can't use at a course where driver's going to be like a key thing. And like that's not as true this week as it otherwise would be. So I think he can play pretty well this week. Irons and short game, both good. 11th and 19th in his 2 trips here to this event. So I don't mind putting him at 84. So the 3 from me in this range: McCarty 88, Bezuidenhout 86, Putnam 84. Any other value plays you want to give a shout to?
Sammy Valimaki
at
84. He's at 0.48 true strokes gained approach over the last 50 and 0.60 putting. There's 2 names in the field above a 0.4 in both of those over the last 50 total rounds. Valimaki and Haotong Li. Lee's got 32 shot length rounds in that sample. But if you want some irons and putting, I think Valimaki works there. And then I'll shout out Henrik Norlander as well, who is 78 or 76. 76 based on the irons that I talked about. So that's like probably my path to a Burns.
Yeah.
Burns Goddard / Burns McNeely start is to get to Norlander and hope for the best. Also, I mean, just shout out Preston Stout right above that, but
sure.
I don't think I'm going that angle, but the data says that he's in good form. So,
okay. Who are your DFS loves this week on FanDuel?
Loves are going to be Sam Burns at 12K, Akshay at 10.3, Grillo at 10.2, Noren at 9,000, McCarty at 88.
I have a similar list. I'm going to go with Burns at 12,000. I'll go Batia at 10.3. Can't quite get to Grillo being a love personally, but I do like him. I'll put Haotong Li in that bucket, frankly, at 94. Why not? Seems fun. And then Bezuidenhout 86 is a guy I love. Putting him as a strong, I would say 84 for me as well. So I feel better about the 8K range this week personally than I do about the 9K range. So I want to gravitate that direction. Okay. Let's finish up now with our win picks contest for this week. As mentioned, Bobblehead is done and dusted. You've already clinched victory in that, so congratulations to you there. However, it does still run because we have to decide who picks first and fourth versus second and third. I think I won last week.
Yeah.
Okay. So
rough for me because I know that means you're going first.
Right. And so with the way this works is I'm up, I think, 22 units right now over you. I have a 22 unit lead in this contest. So that's going to play a key role in this week because you could pick Sam Burns.
It's 24.
Okay, 24. You could pick Sam Burns and you would not catch me.
Correct.
So I'm going to leave Burns on the table for you and take Batia 35 because I'm okay if you take Burns and still need to add another outright later on this year.
Which I just take Scotty if I do that. So I'd probably take him 3 times to get.
Yeah.
Right. So then I'm I foresaw this and I still needed to figure things out from there. I need names. There's not a lot right behind that. Even McNeely doesn't get me there. I don't really want to go to Wyndham Clark. I guess I'm going to go. I will go with then Grillo at 50.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with
what I would expected. Yeah.
And I think I'm going to go Siwoo at 31.
Okay. I like that. Siwoo is, like you said, probably used for some putting regression, accurate off the tee, has some solid irons. So I think that makes a lot of sense. So you got Siwoo Kim 31, and you have got Emiliano Grillo at 50. I'm going to add Burns at 18 as my other one, try to bolster that lead a bit and force you to pick a bit longer later on this year. So I got Sam Burns 18 and Akshay Bhatia at 35 as my win picks for this week. Any final thoughts for you, Brandon, before we close up shop for this week?
Just a reminder, this is definitely a long shot friendly event. Still makes it, difficult to pick from that list. I do think there are great cases, as we mentioned, for Sam Burns and Bhatia in particular at their current numbers. But from a daily fantasy standpoint, I think you can stand to get a little bit more creative this week, and it could be relevant in these larger events where a shot here and there changes a lot. So definitely be willing to avoid some of the names that you're hearing everyone talk about. I think it's a good week to do that unless you're really sold on them, which is also fine.
Yes, you can avoid the names everyone's talking about. I can't do that, which is why I'm overlapping with Brandon, but you definitely can. If you have a strong read that, hey, Wyndham Clark the week before the Wyndham Championship, got to ride with that narrative. Chris Goddard, 1 week removed from his birthday, got to ride with that. I get it. So you can definitely find those if you are so inclined. That is all that we have here for this week on the Heat Check. Back again next week to preview that Wyndham Championship. That'll be on Tuesday, as always, on the FanDuel Research Podcast feed and on the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page. Go subscribe to both those. Leave us a thumbs up or a 5-star rating. We appreciate all of you tuning in as always. Brandon, if people have questions for you on social media, where can they find you there?
I'm on X at Gdula13, GDULA13, and on Blue Sky at Gdula.
And I'm on X and Blue Sky at JimSannes. I will mention I'm also on Threads at Jim.Sannes in case that one starts to pick up steam. Just going to throw darts all across the board and kind of see what happens from that perspective. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work in the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your bets and your DFS lineups for the 3M Open. We'll talk to you once again next week. This has been the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast.